The question is, why does the left seem to hate free speech? I thought they were champions of free speech.
It is rather baffling, and I think that amongst those of the more, let's call it the more moderate left, there's still a modicum of free speech among many of them. And I think that is sort of exemplified to an extent in the recent open letter that was sent to Harper's Magazine, published by over 150 scholars, authors, various people from various, public-facing jobs and otherwise, journalists, academics, etc. This open letter is like, I mean, it's not even like 2,000 words long. It is not a long letter. And all it does is basically says, hey, the trend that we're seeing of people, going through cancellations as a result of just seemingly benign things is absolutely getting out of control. And you would think, that the promotion of the value of free speech and in more of an open way. Now, as we know, as libertarians, like the idea of free speech is qualified. Like, you don't necessarily, like, it's qualified by property rights, as in, the question of who gets to say fire in a crowded theater is not contingent upon your free speech right, but rather on who owns the theater, and so on and so forth. But the general modicum or value of free speech in an open society that goes even a little beyond the restriction of the government in order to punish it is still like, there's a value in that, and that is, getting really attacked by on all sides by the most radical people on the left. And to be fair, this has happened on the right as well at times. But what we're seeing now is something that makes like McCarthyism look like, yesterday's news.
Yeah.
And that's just insane. And that's what this Harper's letter was kind of trying to emphasize a little bit. Although it didn't reach out and talk about McCarthyism, but it alluded to, issues of the radical right at times. And okay, fine.
Question, Norm, did it speak on the trope that I've heard multiple times that free speech is hate speech?
I mean, it kind of notes that to an extent, but the kind of interesting side or secondary effect here is that almost instantaneously after this starts going out, you see the Twitter war just like going completely bananas. And even the reactionary articles to it. I mean, people are writing response articles against this that are, 10x as long as the original article. Wow. I mean, it's, I understand the so-called, BS principle, that it takes an order of magnitude more work to refute BS in order than to write it. But this is out of control. And I think it's really significant as to where we are in our society right now in America, where this is really kicked up a notch in a way that is beyond unhealthy. And I mean, like we gotta admit, like, social pressure isn't bad. Okay, like social pressuring is not inherently a bad thing. In fact, look in our libertarian literature, and you'll see, one of the ways in which we expect that good values are upheld is through social pressuring, through even, ostracizing to an extent. But this is a step beyond. Like, there are elements of it that you can be on board with on some level, but the level of which it has reached is now way outside of the realm of where we ought to like approve of at that point.
Yeah, social pressure is always better than state pressure, because
exactly.
one of the fundamental tenets of libertarianism is the difference between culture or society and the state. But a lot of people sort of kind of want to merge those and so forth.
So it's instructive to us as libertarians to like recognize where even we might even say cancel culture kind of gets it right on some level, which is, I mean, and I've just been railing against it on one side, but I'm going to, pivot and say, like, it's not completely wrong, right? There are things we can recognize about it that are valuable. But the way in which it ultimately gets practiced is getting out of control. Carrie, I'm sorry, I kind of preempted
Yeah,
you
well,
there.
I was just going to say, I mean, social pressures is one thing when it's, spontaneously, when it spontaneously arises from culture. But that's not entirely what we have here, because we have a media driving a narrative. We have politicians driving a narrative, and you have people latching onto that. And then, bringing up their cancel culture and that sort of thing. So, we have a situation where the state is still pretty heavily involved in whatever that cancel culture is. And so it's not even the libertarian way that we would conceive of that social pressure.
Yeah, it's on the verge of like whacked out citizen arrest. I mean,
It almost seems to at least divulge, because I think the way that cancel culture has been used primarily is a little bit of a slippery slope to where it may be, hey, we're just not going to listen to this person, or we're not going to shop at their business anymore, to then turn around and say, we're going to use the powers of the state to try and cancel these people, remove licenses, and remove all kinds of abilities that they have to make a living. So to me, it's insidious on that standpoint, because it sets up a precedent that is far beyond what we would see normally as just regular interactions between free people who may disagree with one another.